This is the instructor video about ethical reasoning, also known as decision making. Think about these questions. What are the general facts of decision making? Which model appeals to you the most? When would you use a decision making model? And also, how are ethical frameworks a necessary component of making difficult decisions? Compare and contrast. How are ethical frameworks different from ethical reasoning using decision-making models? Hint: ethical frameworks are guidelines for how you want to live your life. Hint: decision-making models are step-by-step tools used to decide how to act or not act. In other words, you use those tools to make decisions, but you might be swayed in one direction or the other by the ethical framework that you believe is the best way for you to live. So there's all these decision-making models. A framework for thinking ethically includes a model for decision-making at the end of that paper. The 12 questions module, the Josephson's module, the Department of Defense ethical decision-making model, and making ethical decisions a 7-step path. From the end of the article, a framework for thinking ethically, a model for decision-making. Hint: these are steps for making a decision and are not part of an ethical framework. 1. Recognize an ethical issue. 2. Get the facts. 3. Evaluate alternative actions. 4. Make a decision and test it. 5. Act and reflect on the outcome. The 12-question decision-making model is much more complicated. 1. Have you defined the problem accurately? 2. How would you define the problem if you stood on the other side of the fence? 3. How did this situation occur in the first place? 4. To whom and what do you give your loyalties as a person and as a member of the company? 5. What is your intention in making this decision? 6. How does this intention compare with the likely results? 7. Whom could your decision or action injure? 8. Can you engage the affected parties in a discussion of the problem before you make your decision? 9. Are you confident that your position will be as valid over a long period of time as it seems now? 10. Could you disclose without qualms your decisions or action to your boss, your family, or society as a whole? 11. What is the symbolic potential of your action if understood, if misunderstood? 12. Under what conditions would you allow exceptions to your stand? The Josephson's model. It has a lot more stuff attached to it, but I just put the big highlights. 1. Stop and think. 2. Clarify goals. 3. Determine facts. 4. Develop options. 5. Consider consequences. 6. Choose, monitor, and modify. The Department of Defense decision-making model also has a lot more detail, but I'm just reading the highlights. 1. Define the problem. 2. Identify the goals. 3. List appropriate laws or regulations. 4. List the ethical values at stake. 5. Name all the stakeholders. 6. Gather additional information. 7. State all feasible solutions. 8. Eliminate unethical options. 9. Rank the remaining options according to how close they bring you to your goal and solve the problem. 10. Commit to and implement the best ethical solution. Making ethical decisions a 7-step path includes these 7, which are also in more detail on the original document. 1. Stop and think. 2. Clarify goals. 3. Determine facts. 4. Develop options. 5. Consider consequences. 6. Choose an action. 7. Monitor and modify. How are these models alike? Well, you have to state the issue. You have to figure out what your goal is. You get all the facts that you can. You consider all stakeholders' points of view. You consider possible consequences. You consider options and choose one option. You monitor what happens when you actually act, and you modify your decision if necessary. A bad example of ethical decision-making. Dilbert says, "I need a doctor's note for the 2 days of work I missed." The doctor says, "You look healthy to me." "I got better." The doctor says, "How do I know you were sick?" The note just needs to say I was sick. The doctor says, "So you want me to lie?" Dilbert says, "It's not a lie. I really was sick." The doctor says, "If your company doesn't trust you, why should I?" Dilbert says, "Good point." Then Dilbert says, "What if I let the people in your waiting room cough on me? Then you can write a note saying I have what they have." The doctor says, "As long as I didn't recommend it, I think that passes ethical muster." His boss says, "You have 9 diseases?" Dilbert says, "That have names." Decision making. How do you solve a problem, an ethical dilemma? You need to consider at least 2 competing stakeholders' perspectives. To do that, consider the facts as seen by both stakeholders and their cultural frameworks. Identify an ethical framework for each of the competing stakeholders that seems to make sense for them. Then, using a decision-making model, follow the step-by-step process to solve this problem. Here's a video. If you're interested in more information about how to make a choice, I suggest this TED Talk, How to Make Hard Choices by Ruth Chang. This is an excellent video about how we make decisions and seem to sometimes do something that doesn't make sense. And for this particular part of the class, the module about ethical decision making, each group is going to create a mind map using one case study and then using ethical decision making models to solve that, and then finding out how they fit the ethical frameworks. Please see the instructions in the group activity for this module. Thank you.